Hi there guys, and welcome to just a short video to tell you how to get gradient data into Railworks, or at least into a format where you can use it in Railworks Train Simulator. So to do this, there's actually two documents that you need to have to hand. The first one is a sectional appendix, and the second one is the gradient data. So we'll start with the sectional appendix. This is really easy to get hold of. If you just Google sectional appendix, and then you want the network rail link, click on that. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, it says View Sectional Appendix PDF Copies. And then you need to know where your route is in the country, and then just download the correct sectional appendix for it. One thing to look out for here is that London North Western has two, it's got the south and the north one. So if we look at the north one, quite big files, these take a while to load, they're nearly 1,000 pages. So a nice handy little map to show you what's on there. So depending on which route you want to do, you can just check it's on here. If it's not, you need to go and download a different one, because it'll be on that one. I believe the entire UK is covered. There might be some brand new lines that aren't on these, depending on how updated these are. This one's June 2018, so it's pretty up to date. What we'll do here is, obviously I haven't got time to actually build an entire line in a little 10-minute video, but imagine that you're doing from perhaps Preston down to Rugeley on the West Coast main line. So you were looking to find the gradient data from Preston all the way to Rugeley. Now it may be in one table, it may be in several tables, it's just something you have to go and have a look at. But the table starts on about page 110 or so. If we jump to page 110, a bit before that actually. If we knew a place on our route, we could just go and find that, and that would give us the place number. So if you were to start at Rugeley, go and look for Rugeley, and then Stafford, and so on and so forth. But as crews come up, if we look for crew, we can see it's on route number here, NW 1001, on indeed page 9 of that. So we'll go and have a look for that, NW 1001. I happen to know it's right at the top of this document. Once we get past these, bear with me a minute while I scroll through them. But these are absolutely huge documents, so I do suggest that you download them and put them into something like Adobe PDF. It makes it a bit easier to view them. You can also do things like search them for certain things. But they are brilliant. It's like absolutely everything you want to know about a route. Sadly, except where signals are, you need different documents for that. So here we go. Here's Rugeley. This is the bottom of the route. Now, the thing to note here is what this number here is. The sequence is basically like the page number of this set of routes. So if you go to the next one, which is Shugbrook and Cole, which is page 2. Line of route description, that will actually tell you where it goes to. So this is Armitage Junction to Preston Files Junction. So actually we're quite good here. This actually does go all the way to Preston just on this, but some of them don't. So for example, if you wanted to do, I think the best example I can think of here is the curve at Gloucester. If you go from Cheltenham onto the Gloucester thing, that works over about 4 or 5 of these. So you need to download each one. But the thing to really make a note of here is the mileage. The gradient data follows the mileage on the sectional appendix. So this starts here at 119.2, or in fact it doesn't, it's 119 miles and 20 chains. There are 80 chains in a mile, in a decimal. So you need to do some converting there, because irritatingly, this works in miles and chains. The gradient data works in miles and yards in a very peculiar way, as you'll see in a minute. And Train Sim works in meters. So first thing to do is just to check that your entire route is on here. Now I happen to know that this one does follow the West Coast Main Line from there. But if you're doing this for the first time, it's sensible to check, because you don't want to sort of get to somewhere and find that you run out. But the one thing that you do have to take care of is this, mileage changes. So this runs up to 187 miles and 76 chains, but then suddenly changes to 0 miles and 53 at Golborne Junction. So you'll see why this is important in a minute, because we're going to end up sorting our gradient data sort of smallest to biggest. So it's not going to be at the same point of the route that the sudden mileage changes. So if we go all the way to Preston, you can see there's another mileage change here at Preston, from 21 miles and 57 chains to 0, which would be then on to the next table. So to get your gradient data, you need to go to this link. Now, this took me quite some finding, to be honest. I actually got it off a forum in the end. Someone had a link to it on there. So what I'll do is I'll pop a link to this in the video description for you. It makes it a bit easier. And then what you're looking for, you don't have to worry about any of this. It's just this one here, Track Gradients by DU. So that downloads. Let me just fire that one up. Use OpenOffice or Excel or some other one. But the table that we're interested in is this one here, Track-in, Cleanse, No Duplicates. This has got every single different section of track which has a gradient on it. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just always up to the top of the page. As you can see, there are absolutely thousands of these, so we need to work out a way of making that easier to deal with. So if we go to Auto Filter here. Now that NW1001 number that I was on about earlier, that's here. So what we do is we'll click on this and then we'll search it. Now you may have a different one. This, by the way, does cover all sectional appendices. So EA is East Anglia, NW is London North Western, and so on and so forth. So if we put NW in there, that'll bring it up to that one. So it's NW1001. So this is showing us each one here. Now I'm not actually 100% certain exactly how this sorts it. I think actually, believe it, yes, it has. It's sorted by gradient, which is a bit useless for our purposes. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to copy all of this. If it behaves itself, there we go. So we'll copy that. You don't actually need the last two columns. The last two columns sometimes will have little notes put in them about interesting things about the gradients. There might be a differing gradient on each track, all that sort of thing. But don't worry too much about those, especially when there are them. So what we'll do is we'll copy those, and we'll just fire up a new table and paste those in. So what we now need to do is sort these, get some sort of order going on there. So don't select these top bits here because we'll end up moving if we're about to sort it. So we'll just select the data. I'll tell you how the data works in just a second. So if we go to sort, now start miles yards is in column D, so we want to sort that by column D. You could sort it by finished mile yards if you wanted to. So now it's got it in order, and what you can see, if we go down to here, is that mileage change from 21 miles, 1,091 yards. You can see that there's a mileage change here. So, believe it or not, this actually, where it says Rugby Trent Valley, that's actually the start of the sectional appendix that we were looking at earlier, so that corresponds to Rugeley. And this column, this row here, sorry, is the end of it. So this is corresponding with where Preston is. So this is just important to remember, otherwise you'll start off at Rugeley here and you'll end up running out of data at 21 and realise you've made a mess of it. Although I'd hope you'd realise before then because the track will be in completely the wrong place. So what we now have to do is tell you how it all works. So don't worry about ELR, that's just another sort of thing off the sectional appendix, which corresponds to here. The ELR is something to do with the route. I mean, someone can comment and tell me what it is. Or it's something line number, or anyway, it's not important. We don't need to worry about it for our purposes today. There's then the ELR description, so it tells you where this actual particular section goes. So Goulburn Junction to Preston. Again, they're just informative. They're not all massively important for our purposes. The LOR number, we're done with that now. Don't worry about that. But this is where it gets annoying, interesting, or however you want to put it. Because start miles yards, as you would logically believe, that figure here would be 2 miles, 0.044. Well, it's not. What it is 2 miles and 440 yards. So the largest figure you're ever going to see in here is 1,759, with there being, of course, 1,760 yards in a mile. This is a little bit irritating because if we just try to subtract one from the other, it's going to work most of the time where there's not a mileage change, but it will stop working where there is where there is a mileage change and where it goes over and you get the wrong value. I'll show you that here. So if we put this as difference, and we just simply take the finish miles and the start miles, one find what the difference is, of course, subtract the smaller from the larger. Now that's actually correct, that's actually no miles and 492 yards. If we just put all this all the way down here, what you find is all of a sudden, some of them are not quite right. So for example, this one here, which is 8 miles, 1,619 yards, so only 150 or so away from the 9th mile. And this one is 300, or 299 from the 9th mile, so the difference there is of course 300 down to 9 miles, and then another 150 down to 8 down to this figure here. So you should have about 470-ish as your answer, but it's not. It's telling us it's 868, which is nearly twice as much. So clearly that's wrong. So what we need to do is we need to split those. So we'll delete that. So what we need to do is we need to split miles from yards. Now, the simplest way that I've found of doing this, there might be some, if you're really clever with Excel, you can probably get it to do it within Excel. But for the easier simplification, what we'll do is we're going to select the data, just the data. And if we copy that, fire up Notepad. Now you need to use something like Notepad. Notepad++ will work, other things like that will also work. Don't do this in Word. I'll tell you why, because Word will add a whole load of formatting text at the top and formatting text at the bottom and things, Microsoft ink written in them and all sorts. What we want is just the raw data. We don't want it to add anything to this file. We're just going to save that as. And if you put this as start miles, so SM, but this is important, but you need to save it as a CSV. Okay, because that's then going to load up properly. Okay, and then we need to do the same with the finish model. Oops. Press one button there. So load up Notepad again. Put the finish miles in. Remember to save as. So if we save there, it goes finishmiles.csv. Okay. Now what we want to do is you want to open those CSV files in Excel or in OpenOffice or whatever it is that you're using. Okay, so start miles, fire that up. Then you're going to get this box come up, and this is about how you want it to import the text. Now the most important thing is you need to get it to understand that the data is separated by that full stop. Because if you don't, it's just going to simply import it as you've exported it, which isn't really a lot of help. So if we just put a full stop in there, there you go, you can see that's now going to put it in two distinct columns. So click OK. Opens up in a new spreadsheet. So what we want to do is copy all of this. Go back to the document we were working on, which is this one. And then just insert two columns here. And then paste it in there. So what it's done is it's split that for us. So it's now got no miles, 616 yards, 616 yards. So we'll just label those. So we now see the start mile figure and the start yard figure. So we've got them as separate numbers. We can deal with them separately now. We just need to do exactly the same for the finish miles. So again, that is opening up the finish mile document this time. And then making sure we've got that full stop in there. It's important that you don't suddenly change the ordering halfway through, otherwise this won't work. And just paste those into there. And then we'll just label those as well. Finish miles and finish yards. Okay, so we've got our start miles and start yards, we've got our finish miles and finish yards, so we can now work out the difference between these accurately. So what we'll do, we'll just insert a couple of columns there, give us a bit of space to work. So if we now put difference miles and difference yards, okay, so that's going to now work out the difference between the two. So take your finish mile number and subtract from it the start mile number, and then just copy that throughout. And then exactly the same for the yards, except of course taking our finish yards, subtracting those from our start yards. That'll give us a difference, 492 yards in that example. Now you are going to get some negative numbers. And these numbers are, as I was saying earlier, these are the ones which don't work. So if you were simply to have taken this figure in fact this one, and to have subtracted this one from it, or the other way around, in fact, that one subtracted from that one, you've got the wrong number. That's negative 1002, and you can't have a distance that is negative. It doesn't work, does it? So to rectify this, what we do is we now need to get a total difference. We can insert in the column here, and the formula for this is what we want to do is we want to convert this mileage number into yards. So just simply multiplying it by 1,760. And then what we want to do is subtract this difference number from it. Okay, sorry, add in fact the difference number to it. So of course, if it's a negative value, it'll end up being subtracted from it. So the formula for that is, put this first bit in brackets. If you take difference miles, multiply that by 1,760, close brackets to make you do that bit first, and then you add to it that figure there. So in this example, because there's nothing, 0 times 1760 is equal to 0 plus 492. But here, for example, it's going to do 1760 multiplied by 2, but it's then going to subtract 1,161 yards away from it, which is going to give us a correct figure. And there you have it. So this now is going to be our gradient length. And this is the column that we're most interested in, is how long the gradient is. Okay, so they range wildly. Some will be 20, some will be 30 yards, some of them will be even longer. So then we've got our gradient amount. Now what this means here is, in this example, we've got 492 yards of track at a gradient of negative 1,424. So that's going downhill. This one here is a 457 yard section of track at a gradient of 1,138. And this is what these start and finish mile yards mean. So the way this document syntax works is it says, at this point here, the gradient starts. At this point here, the gradient ends. And the gradient is this. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work in train sim, so you have to get these figures here. But there's one last thing that we need to do, is convert this into meters. Gradient in meters, and then to do that, we just need to multiply it by, so for that one, times it's 1.09361, and that gives you the gradient length in meters, which is more helpful for train sim. Okay, now it's up to you whether you want to leave these enormous decimal places there, but just put 2, that'll be enough. Now, I must say, when I'm laying track in train sim, I don't worry too much about getting this number here right. It takes just a ridiculous length of time to do it, to get it absolutely super duper spot on. It also isn't of much practical use to try and do that anyway. And there's a bit of a disclaimer with this this gradient data here. I don't know. I don't think it's 100% actually exact. Either that or the DEM data within train sim isn't exact. Now I know the DEM data is very low res, but I'm not actually. One of them is not correct, because if you were to start laying track from Rugeley with these, you would eventually end up with a ridiculous. Even if you follow the city accident letter, even if you have all 4 decimal places there, you're really precise, it would still end up in the wrong place. You'd end up with track far too high or track far too low. So just use a bit of common sense as you're going along. Have Google Earth or Google Maps or something like that up next to you. That'll give you an idea, of whether your track's on an embankment, whether it's in a cutting or a bridge, whatever it may be. But just remember that you need to do quite a lot of terraforming. So even though your track does look like it's a little way underground, if it's in a big cutting, then of course it's going to end up underground for a bit. And the amount of space that it goes underground or the amount of space it goes above ground by can be quite alarming at first, but we'll show you that in a few minutes. So this has got the gradient length in meters and the gradient amount. So that's now ready to be used in train sim. But like I said, the most important thing here is to remember about this mileage change. So that's really it. That's all there is to it. That's would work for any route, any data in here. If you've got any other questions, sort of thing, I can be found on Facebook in various train sim related groups. You can also pop me an email. I'll put the email in the video description as well. along with those other things. So thanks very much for watching this, guys. Obviously, feel free to share this or like it or whatever it is that you can do with videos on YouTube. And if I get around to get time to it, I'll try and do a video as well showing you actually how to use this data in Train Simulator and work out how to get that to work. So thanks very much for watching, and cheers.